What's up, everybody? It's Casey from the Geeks with Wives here, and I want to tell you why you should be listening to the Ladies of the Round Table. Basically, is that these are the female perspective from the Geeks with Wives, so if you guys are looking for another point of view of the same topics and issues and games and comics that we talk about, please listen to the Ladies of the Round Table. They'll offer you an awesome female perspective. It's funny, it's in-depth, it's insightful. And let's face it, ladies just have a ton of more fun than we do. So make sure you guys check them out every Friday night. Also, if you like what you're seeing there, and you like Geeks with Wives, you can check me out on their YouTube page at the Our Comics Corner, sponsored by the Ladies of the Round Table. So check out their podcast every Friday night, My Comic Corner on their website every week, and until next time, we will catch you on the geek side.
The beauty of role-playing games is that you can play anything you want to play. You can be anything you want to be. You can step outside of yourself, and all the players at the table are creating the story together. And sometimes the Dungeon Master can create the campaign. Sometimes the whole party can create the campaign as you're adventuring.
He used the necromantic magic contained within to call forth an army of dread warriors from the netherworld.
And then the Dungeon Master will decide the goals of the game and what you are actually going to do session by session. Every time you meet, where you're going to go, what's going to happen to you, things like that. I focus just on the story. I don't worry about the mechanics. I don't worry about the monster stats or anything like that. At first, I just want to tell a good story. So basically what happens is the DM, the storyteller, is going to say, all right, so you walk into this cave, it's dimly lit, what do you do? The goal is to progress the story as far as we can through exploration, asking questions, feeling out our surroundings, getting a sense of what does it smell like? Is it damp? Is it misty? When I hold my torch, do I see something moving in the distance?
Is it low light?
It's dark. You're underground.
So it's low light.
It's dark.
So basically you're going to try to continue the story along as far as you can go until that Dungeon Master says, roll for it. Because as soon as the Dungeon Master asks you to roll the dice, that's when you have a possibility of failure.
If you roll a natural 1 on a saving throw, you die.
With a tabletop RPG, there's no limits to what you can do aside from your dice, really. You're just limited in how well you succeed, and how well you succeed always makes for a better story. Always adds a new element that can be built off of to something unexpected or a change in the scenario that then everybody just jumps on and can go from there, which makes it very much about what's happening right now in the moment together sitting down at this game.
The roundtable. Thank you for joining us, all of you that were real patient while that video played. Hopefully it was educational for some of you. Thanks everybody in the chat for all the love. Rise Up Gaming, represent. Tonight's guest, Wythe Marschall. I think you are on my right. I don't know if I'm correct.
Yeah, you're like above me, but...
Oh, okay. All right,
All
well.
are above me.
Somewhere over there is Mr. Wythe Marschall. He is a PhD candidate for the Department of History and Science at Harvard University, and he is a lifelong dungeon master, hence why he is on our show. Tonight's topic is the rise of tabletop and D&D, and a little bit of RPG sprinkled in. Wythe writes and teaches futurism, biopunk literature, and bio-art, and changing concepts of body and health. And he's just, you know, that weird guy that you know on the street. You can find him at Aloha on Twitter. Oh boy, this is awesome. I mean, I'm pretty excited. I am not a large D&D RPG tabletop kind of person, so this is going to be very educational for me. So, for a change, I'm going to be quiet. Yay, says the chat.
She said it, we did.
Lies.
The chat goes wild.
Oh, man. All right, so We've all noticed that in tabletop or RPGs are really coming back around. There seems to be a lot of people being a lot more honest about that they play RPGs or tabletop versus just straight up video games. And that's awesome. If you are a tabletop player, an RPG player, and you are proud of it, we want to hear you shout it out on Twitter. Give us a shout out because we want to know that you rock that tabletop game, D&D, whatever it might be. I've been told that tabletop and D&D are two different things. You cannot call them by the same name. That is a no-no. I learned my lesson the hard way. I mentioned to someone about tabletop, and they corrected me. Toot sweet.
Geeks Assemble. What?
A lot of kids today are
Geeks Assemble.
are going to play tabletops with their families versus going back to the new consoles that are coming out, which is kind of interesting considering we've got the new Xbox and the new PlayStation. You'll see a lot of kids playing these types of games in their rec centers and after-school projects, which is pretty awesome. I myself bought the starter kit for D&D for my kids because I was pretty excited about the fact that they had played a app version of a RPG on the iPad, and they were ecstatic over it. This dice and the mechanisms and everything that went with the game. I was like, all right, Santa Claus is bringing us a D&D. We went to get it set up, and they totally lost interest because of the time frame it takes to set it up. I took too long because I have never played. So for me to set it up, it took me a half an hour. I was like, oh yeah, he's gotta go. So I lost them. So I can't wait to get started though. It sounds so fascinating. I love the fact that you use your imagination in most everything that you do. And these things have been around for a long time. Isn't that right, Ray?
Yeah, they're really from the 70s, and I started playing because of my older brother, and I don't know why he started playing, but this is in the 90s, early 90s, and they definitely, for some weird reason, are coming back today, despite the fact, as you said, video games are getting cooler and cooler, and soon we'll be in, holodeck freaking, like, laser tag environments via Kinect and, that kind of technology, but it's still fun to use your imagination and tell a story, and there's something about the fact you have to do it with other people, you have to do it live. Although, as we were talking about a little earlier, you don't even really have to do it live because of Skype now. You could actually have D&D sort of across space in a fun way too. But yeah, I mean, it's coming back, and people are definitely excited about it and willing to talk about it. And I don't know exactly why that is either, although I could postulate. Basically, I think because Vin Diesel admitted he plays Dungeons & Dragons. I think that was the turning point. If Vin Diesel can do it, anyone can do it. But yeah, they're really fun, and they're worth investing in. They're worth going back to if you get flustered or if your kids don't want to play it now. Maybe in a couple years they'll want to tell a story that way. It's very different than video gaming, I would say. But
yeah, definitely. Heather or Paige, have you dabbled in the taboo that is tabletop RPG or D&D?
Yes.
Let's
Go ahead, Paige. Knock yourself out.
Let's start with Heather.
Oh, okay, well, so I guess you could technically say I do. I play a game called Traveler, which is a okay. So you know what I'm talking about then. I saw you nod your head.
yeah,
So
it's D&D in space. Yeah.
yeah, it is, and I do it
Interesting.
every other Tuesday. Yeah, I do it every other Tuesday, and I am not the game master, so I don't feel equipped to ever lead a game. But it is. It feels like I'm just playing, telling a story in space, and I have a character, and it's really fun. And once I moved, I was trying to find ways to connect with friends using Skype and things like this. So this has been a nice way for me to connect with people and have something to do socially on a random Tuesday night. So that's sort of my only experience, I guess, in terms of tabletop or anything of that nature. But
Have you ever thought about playing something else, or with the group that is not someone that you know? Would you be that girl to seek out other players?
I don't know if I would. I feel like I would have to know at least one person in the group to feel comfortable enough to do it, because I'm still wrapping my mind around speaking as if I'm a character. Writing S1 would be way, I mean, because I like to write, so that's totally different. But to speak and say, oh, you know, like my character's name's Tali Setzer, and so like, and so it's weird for me to say things as if I'm Tali, but everybody else is really good and they're really helpful with me, and they don't like make fun of me or anything. It's just something I'm still working through. So the idea of going with other people I don't even know, I'd be scared, nervous.
So with the group that you have, and there are a group of friends, correct?
Yeah, it's 5 of us.
The group that you have, you don't feel like anyone is judging you for how you play, your style of play, anything like that. You feel very comfortable in that environment.
Yeah, because the game master, I think if you have a good one, that helps, because I don't feel like if I break character, nobody's like smacking me over the face, like, what the hell are you doing? Like, I'm like, okay, is it 2d6 this time, or like, oh, does my character have this item I don't know? And so it helps to have somebody who's not a jerk leading the group.
Right.
And so I think it helps when you're not in such a hardcore group of people that they are beating your head if you don't know specific things. That helps. It's very judgment free.
So Paige, what about you?
Let's see. I played a little bit of D&D when I was in high school. Actually, probably closer to like beginning of high school-ish. But it's actually been about, how old am I? 15 years since I've dabbled, so
Wow.
It could basically be about brand new to me. 15 years is a long time. But so yeah.
But you look amazing.
Oh, that's great. You do look amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
Let her bask in that for another moment, ladies and gentlemen.
No, thank you. But no, it was funny. I think like any other child in the teenager in the late 90s, I had an internet boyfriend because that's just who I was. I had an internet boyfriend, and I met this kid in real life eventually, and I used to get together with him and his friends on weekends and play Dungeons and Dragons.
That's a real teenage boyfriend right there.
That is. That is.
That's how it works.
It was delightfully nerdy.
It's okay. We know that you embrace your inner geek and let your nerd fly fly. We know how you are.
I love it.
And we're proud.
It's actually, I think, a good litmus test too. If you want to like date someone and you love RPGs, if they get into it and they're like willing to try it even, then like that's a good sign that they like you, that they're an open-minded person. Like it can be really fun. That's actually been like an ongoing thing I've noticed is like, you know, you just ask your partner like, hey, would you want to try this hobby? It's kind of fun. It almost sounds like you're trying to get them in a cult or to try drugs, but then they play and they have a good time. They realize that it's like...
That's exactly how I met my husband.
Not a big deal.
We dated for about six to 8 weeks, and he hid the inner gamer in him. And then one day he said, if I get this online game, will you play it with me? And I said, I don't even know what the hell that is. And the monster was created. Look, we're married now, so yeah, it works out great.
Yeah,
we both can be
Ian
nerdy
came
together.
to pick me up. It's great when you find something like that. Ian came to pick me up on our second date, and there was a Burger Time arcade in the foyer of my house. So he was just like, okay, I got this.
That's my girl.
I want to go to your house and just never leave.
We are. We're going to do a show from her house, let me tell you.
It is actually all fun and games here.
Yeah, it's romper room over there, people. I was looking online for some statistics to just try to get my head around just what's going on with this new resurgence of tabletop RPGs or D&Ds. And Wizards of the Coast, which is the people that make the D&D franchise, estimate that 5.5 million people, that's with an M, million people in the U.S. regularly play RPGs. That's like staggering. It's phenomenal. It makes me want to geek out. It's so exciting. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. So I got to get on this bandwagon because I am not one of those 5.5 million people. I am late to the game. So everybody out there who plays these types of games, Ladies of the Round Table is looking to learn, get involved, start communicating with your community and learn what you guys are all about, because we embrace every aspect of the geek, nerd, blurred culture. We are you people. So bring us what you got. Educate us. We're willing to learn. I might be slow on the uptake, but hey, what are you going to do? Sia, what do you got for news?
For news, just sort of, it was mentioned earlier, just in the fact that there's so many celebrities that play that I actually didn't know about. So like Vin Diesel, who apparently wrote he wrote the intro to the book 30 Years of Adventure Celebrating Dungeons and Dragons. And he introduced Judi Dench to D&D, which is kind of hilarious. The idea of Judi Dench playing D&D. Kind of awesome, but also strange. Yeah, and let's see, who else do we have on here? I got Mike Myers, Patton Oswalt, and Robin Williams, who have admitted to being tabletop gamers. I would totally play any of those.
I was going to say, I would play
Robin
with
Williams.
that group.
Can
I
you
would
imagine
definitely be like,
characters?
I'm down. I'm bringing my own dice.
I love.
Wow. Oh, man, that's pretty awesome. And Paige,
Yes.
I think that since you are more into D&D from way back when than we are, I think you've noticed some trends amongst a lot of things that are on TV and that kind of stuff, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think you'll find more people have been exposed to it because it's been more positively embraced in pop culture. There's been several TV shows in the past decade or so that's used it as a major plot device. There's been Futurama, Freaks and Geeks, Community, Big Bang Theory. The Community episode of Dungeons and Dragons made me laugh to the point where I was crying. It was so good. Community is fantastic, but that's another
I think
story
we've all
for another
voted that
day.
we love that show. I think that it's
We
just a
do.
well-known
We
thing.
do.
We endorse
Yeah,
that show.
we do. We do.
All right.
I used to watch a lot of Freaks and Geeks too when it was on. I really enjoyed that show.
I did too.
So.
Well, we have to get back to
But
our
yeah,
guests
it's
because
been
we're
all
leaving
over
them
the
out
place.
virtual
We do.
here. So we just gave you a little history there, people. We know what we're doing. We segue right on in. So Wythe, what was your gateway to tabletop or D&D? What was the game that blew your mind?
It was definitely D&D, which I think I've never heard anyone like flip out about this distinction, but I think maybe the idea is just that D&D is specifically Dungeons and Dragons, which is one game, whereas there's lots of other games like Travelers, another old, awesome, fun, similar game. Different rules, different book, different publisher, but same idea. You're someone else, and one of your friends is running the story. Is telling a story in another time and place, and you're kind of pretending to be this person, but you don't actually have to act it out. You're just saying what's going on, and you use dice to kind of control what happens. So there's an element of randomness. I definitely loved D&D from the beginning. Actual Dungeons and Dragons, where you're like, I don't know, a knight or a wizard or an elf or some shit like that. Because my older brother, who I sort of idolized, he was 6 years older than me. I have 2 older brothers and 1 younger brother. He played, and so that was just automatically cool. If he said Pink Floyd was cool, then it was cool because he said it was cool. If he said D&D was cool, same deal. But it was very fun, and my friends got into it too. We all sort of tried it out, and he made it very easy for us to play. We had almost no rolling and almost no rules the whole time. It was just kind of like, make up a character, and then here's the situation, and what do you do? And it sort of was automatically, there was like a tension, like a conflict that had to be resolved, and you sort of felt like you had to really step up and think of something, cool that you want to do to get out of this bad situation. And it didn't feel like it got bogged down in rules, which I think a lot of people make the mistake of playing these games. They read the books, they get flustered by the rules, and then it's kind of all about like numbers and adding dice, and it's not fun because of that. So, yeah, I don't know. D&D is a good one to start with. It's honestly, I don't think it's changed that much. I haven't played the later editions as much, but I doubt it's really changed that much in 15 years, or really since the 70s. I mean, in a main,
So
in a major
you've
way.
been a lifelong DM or GM. Can you tell us what the difference is between the two?
Games like to make up these weird terms. So D&D, the guys who made it up, called the person running the game the dungeon master. A lot of the newer games use the term storyteller or referee, which is, I think referee is too like competitive sounding for me. Like you don't need a referee, you do need a storyteller. So I think
That
that's
sounds like
one.
I don't want to go to that game. If we need a referee, I don't know if I want to play with these
Right.
people.
But I like, Dungeon Master has this corny J.R.R. Tolkien ring to it that I really like. It's kind of, you're creating a dungeon that your friends are going to go explore and get killed in, but not really because you're just eating chips and drinking beer. But, yeah, that applies. I mean, we sort of say it now, even though my games now are all set in the far future, in some sort of post-apocalyptic future Earth. But it's still like, it's whatever you want to call it. It's someone has to come up with the idea to tell a story. And as you play with your friends more and more, they add so many elements that it's much more collaborative. So you're not really driving the game. You're just making sure that something interesting keeps happening and sort of adjudicating little conflicts, but you're not like telling them what's going to happen next. You're letting them kind of drive the story. They get interested. I mean, has this been your experience with Traveler?
Yeah, definitely. Like Forrest, this girl named Forrest is our game master, and she'll say, "Well, you walk into a bar and there's this, there's a guy." I don't do it nearly as good as she does. I'm just putting it in layman's terms. She'll say, "There's a guy and there's a girl, and the guy's looking a little surly over there. Do you want to go talk to him, or do you want to go talk to this girl?" And she kind of lets you make the decisions, and then based on what you do, she just kind of goes with it on the fly. I don't know what she does to prepare, but we will come up with the most outrageous scenarios. Like, this is a little risque. I have a fake eye. Like, I'm a pirate and I have a fake eye. And I came up with this scenario that, because we were trying to, get these bandits to do what we wanted them to do, so I told them that I could explode their junk with my eye if they didn't, listen to us. And, she just went with it. It was, nothing to her that we were just making up these really dirty scenarios. She went with it. And so,
Can
we
I get
come up
in on
with
that
the craziest
game
stuff.
night?
It's a fun game.
Can I just come in the middle? Do I have to start over? How do I get a group like yours where I can make up crazy stuff like that? Because I got a superpower for you. Yeah, I want to play this game. Heather's exploding junk with her fake eye. That sounds like a very interesting
exploding in a
game.
Not exploding in a hot way either. Exploding kaboom, it's gone.
No. You're threatening them. You are exerting your feminine power. That's right, girl.
Yes.
You said, I'm going straight for the junk. She said, forget the arms and the legs. Just right for the junk.
Making a
That's
beeline for it. I like it.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So
tactically, that's the quickest way to disarm somebody.
Right, that is true. You're not coming back after that. Exploding junk, there's no return.
Just no, I'm out.
Whew. All right, guys, you're going to have to hashtag that one, exploding junk.
Sorry, I derailed the hell out of that one.
Yeah, but it was okay.
Really
We love you for it. Oh, man. Bonks isn't here because she's out of town, but Heather is here to save the day. So being a DM or the GM, what kind of prep goes into doing that? Is it something that you're going to, you got people coming over on Tuesday night. Is it going to take you an hour to get stuff together? If you have someone that's new coming into a group that you've had a group playing together for a while, does that throw you off? How does that work?
Not at all. I think people coming in is actually really fun, especially actually if they haven't played in a weird way. They kind of get it right away when you set up a conflict for them. There was a lot of prep, I think, before I started the last game I finished, which went on for a couple of years with most of my best friends. But a lot of new people came in and they picked up right away on sort of what was going on. They were told, well, we've been hired to do this mission, and we're having trouble because we're getting attacked by zombies. We're in this sunken pyramid under this lake full of shark vampires, and, we need to get this door open right now. And, that's where we left off. So it's like if you're handed a sheet with some numbers on it and told that's the situation, and you can kind of take it from there and make up, how your character's going to react. People tend to get it, weirdly. I haven't had a huge problem with that. In terms of prep, it really varies. A lot of people like to write out long, involved scenarios. They draw a lot of maps. I think it works better if you have big goals in mind, and if you know how to motivate people to keep moving forward and kind of not get stuck, or keep sort of surprises happening at a kind of nice pace. So I always think about it in terms of like really good TV shows that have an adventure element, like The Walking Dead. Like, zombies can't attack every minute, but there have to be some zombie attacks to keep you on your toes. So it's this kind of managing of letting them screw around and like try to open the door with their laser wrench, and they can't do it, and then suddenly something attacks. But it can't just be constant combat. It can't be constant like fun at the bar. It has to be sort of a weird mix, and there have to be big political goals that they feel really interested in by the end of the game. I mean, obviously the first session they're not going to care as much, but once you've been playing for a couple months, they will stand up and start screaming. They're like, "No, we lost, the little monkey that we found in 15 games back that doesn't even do anything, but they loved that. That was my monkey, that was my pet, and he just got blown up." So people get into it, and it's not hard to keep going once you've got them in at that level.
So it's
I would actually
addictive,
jump
is what
in.
you're saying.
Oh.
Go for it.
Yeah.
I was going to jump in because you were talking about goals, and one of the things I was curious about is, like, is there a main goal or, like, an inspiration, like, when you're designing one, or you're like, I want them to have, like, this by the end of the game, this is what I want them to achieve, or the goal, like, light bulb, this is the goal.
Yeah, I
don't know
mean,
if that
that's
made
kind
sense.
of the $64 bajillion question. Like, is the goal anything other than they walk around, kill monsters, get loot? Because that's something you can do in a video game, and I think in many ways have more fun doing it in a video game environment. And I think what's different about a good tabletop role-playing game environment, or D&D specifically, is if you give them kind of something else, some other motivation. So, this most recent game, like I said, 2 years ago, it started with some of my best friends and myself saying, well, we'll just start off with the kind of, you're mercenaries, you're going to go kill monsters. But very quickly they got wrapped up in a huge political conflict between essentially a sort of future USSR with, four-armed orc guys, and the sort of human federation, but that had sort of sketchy political views and like slave, shit. And they basically just had to pick sides, and they had to influence like the outcome of essentially a world war. And they got really involved in that. But that's not something I could just make them feel day one, so it sort of had to be through layering in conflicts that things that pissed them off, frankly, and other things that they wanted, like really cool technology that they wanted to steal. You could sort of put that out there as a carrot, and at the same time you create villains that are sort of interesting, and that's the stick, and they want to fight the villains, they want to get the good stuff, but that sort of begins to get more involved with the bigger story. So I don't know, I think that's kind of the hardest part, frankly, is not making D&D just turn into, okay, you guys go outside and there's a monster. Like, the monster is a jerk. Why don't you kill it? Roll for hitting it. Because that's, frankly, that's just not fun.
It's a lot more involved than that, yeah, I found.
Yeah.
It's not something that you can obviously sit down and play for 15 minutes, I take it.
Yeah, I would say maybe 2 or 3 hours is a minimum. Maybe a better game's for like 4 hours, and beyond that, probably people get tired and drunk and want to leave. So, generally we try to play for 4 hours every Sunday or every other Sunday, and that sort of was a really good rhythm. Obviously, around the holidays, it gets really tough, but, if you have a standing time, it becomes very easy to play for 4 hours, and then some people want to stick around and watch TV and drink more, and other people have to leave, and that's like, it sort of ends organically. But that's also a tough thing to figure out as scheduling, because obviously if you want to play with 6 people, it's going to be really tough to get them all in the same room, and their cats.
So, what's the advantages
Tolly
over
table here? Sorry.
It's okay. We see. That's cute. He's trying to get. Look, he's going to take down your ghetto curtain. Oh no!
I need my ghetto curtain to hide my ghetto basement.
Yeah. She's still homeless,
weird.
people.
Okay. I'm still homeless.
So, what advantages does tabletop RPG have over the video game RPG, or do they at all?
I don't know. I'm a big live art person, so I kind of like that it's something you do live with your friends, as opposed to a video game, which you can do live with your friends, which is fun. But you're all looking at the screen generally, whereas in this setting, you're all kind of looking at each other, and you're all kind of imagining your own game, and you can change it over time. Whereas, a video game, as fun as it is, someone else made it, and it's generally, nowadays they're getting much more dynamic, obviously, but it's sort of static. It has a set script that you follow, whereas D&D does. So there's a few different things there that I just said, but basically you're hanging out live with your friends, and you control what happens. There are just really fun differences. I don't think it's necessarily better, but it's something different, and a lot of people love both, obviously. I mean, I think most people probably like both at different times.
Is it safe to say that most all of these types of games have something that the group must work together to overcome, or it doesn't, or else it won't work in this setting?
I don't know if I could say most, but I think probably a lot of games over time develop a kind of group dynamic where everyone wants something, and that might be, for a lot of people, they all want to be the best at killing the baddest monsters and getting the most cool stuff in their world, whatever it is. If it's sci-fi, if it's like a dying planet, if it's modern Earth and they're spies and they want to be the best spies or whatever. But whatever it is, I think it's important that with a tabletop game, everyone's feeling the same way. And I think, again, that develops not the first time you play, but probably after like 5 or 6 times, you get much more of a kind of easy rhythm of like, oh yeah, we should do that. And it's cool when you see that break down too. So if everyone's going after the same goal, it's really fun when suddenly 3 people want to run away and 3 people want to attack right now. And then you get some really heated arguments where you, as the storyteller, just kind of sit back and enjoy that, because they're really like involved at that point, and you don't really have to do anything to make it a good story. Does that make sense?
It made sense. It did make a lot of sense. Now, I know that if I'm walking through a comic book shop that has these types of games, and there's so much to choose from, and there's stuff everywhere, I see a lot of miniatures and things like that with the dice. So I automatically know from being a novice that the dice goes with most of these games. So where do the miniatures come in?
A lot of people like miniatures. They can. I don't ever use them because I think they're kind of expensive, and I find them a little bit silly. I think probably also I'm bad at painting was one reason, but a lot of people like getting the miniatures. They're to scale, so all the miniature companies basically agreed on a scale. I think almost all of them. So you can get kind of a lot of different miniatures at this day and age, and you can paint most of them. I think a lot of them just come as metal. And then you can have your own character that looks the way you want, and you can even like give them different little objects and stuff. And then you can have a sort of to scale battle mat, like basically a big washable like sheet with little hexagons on it, and you move your guys around, and then if a monster shows up, presumably there's a miniature for that too. But to me that sounds like a lot of work and makes it very focused on combat. So I've never gotten that into actual miniatures. It is fun sometimes if you're going to have a big fight scene to have a big map and have people put little tokens to show where they are. Because if you're describing, if I use words to describe a ravine and there's a tower over there and there's a little village like a mile off you can barely see through the morning fog, it's like you kind of can't keep it in your head. But if I draw just like a really simple map, then everyone's looking at it, and suddenly it's very dynamic and tactical and like kind of a real like, okay, what are we going to do now? Like, okay, you go here and I'll go here. So I like that idea that you're involving a graphic element as you're talking, but I never got that into the miniatures myself. I'm sure other people have, and it's really fun, but you don't need them. The dice, yeah, most games require at least some standard like Monopoly dice. Most of them require nowadays like your D20. Which is, the weird looking dice.
Yeah. So
there's so many dice to
moving
choose
along.
from.
I didn't know if Paige wanted to jump in or what have you, but
No,
so-
go ahead.
thank you. So when you're setting up a game, is there like basic mechanics that you're aware of when you're doing it? Is there like an understood that when somebody comes in, or are you pretty much like we were saying earlier, if they don't know what they're doing, you're okay with it? Just what are you aware of when you're setting up a game?
Yeah, I think if you're going to tell the story in whatever game environment you want to use, whatever rules you want to use, you should know the rules pretty well and know what rules you're not going to use. Like D&D has a lot of extraneous rules. a lot of people use this sort of simplified version. Like you'll hear a lot like old school D&D or the old school revival, and that's basically just throwing out a lot of newer stuff that nobody really ever liked anyway, or a lot of, like, at least that I played with, nobody used. So, you know, that's an example of, like, you would need to know how to explain that if someone bought the book. Granted, nowadays, no one I play with now buys any of the books. I mean, people might download a PDF legally or illegally. I have a lot of the old books, and I buy new PDFs, but, like, I don't buy generally new books because I have too many freaking books. But yeah, I mean, not everyone needs to know the rules. Long story short, like, it's fun to just make a character and trust that your friends aren't lying to you when they say, like, okay, well, here's some stats. Or, like, you know, maybe they'll explain to you some options, but maybe they don't need to explain every single thing on your sort of character sheet or everything in the book for you to have a good time. I think that's important for me, and I think that I've seen that work over and over again. You don't need to explain a lot to get someone invested in this kind of group story, you know? You just need to make them feel like they have agency. They have the ability to, like, you know, make a difference there.
Gotcha.
And it helps
Okay.
to give them some cool rules. Like, one cool thing they can do. Like, oh, by the way, you might want to remember that your sword gets bonuses against these bad guys that I know are going to show up soon. Because then they're waiting. They're like, oh yeah, I'm going to mess these guys up. So.
Yeah. It's funny when you talk about how you had, like, that instance where there was, like, a pet monkey, like, from 15 games ago. Like, we have, like, this, like, dumpy kid from the country that just, like, randomly showed up on the ship. I have no idea how he got there because I came into the story from a different angle. Like, I came in, like, a little later. And, like, he's a big deal, and he serves nothing to the story, but, like, I relate to that when you say that people latch on to these, like, really strange things that you necessarily don't account for or expect.
Yeah.
I just find it funny.
It was a huge problem with the last game, actually, because one character, she made it her thing that she loved animals more than people. She was actually a ceramic android that didn't know about her past, so she basically didn't care about people. She kind of had decided she agreed with the group's views, but really what she wanted to do was collect pets. So every time there was a monster that wasn't really lethal, she, like, brought it with her. So she had this kind of menagerie of, like, semi-dangerous, weird fauna from the future. And everyone was just like, why do you have that giant gray grasshopper that smells like crap, like, in our spaceship or whatever? And, you know, she just kind of wouldn't get rid of him. And this kind of went on and on. They ended up getting also this ape savant plumber, so basically like a chimpanzee but who has the intelligence of a man, but he sort of spoke like he was this outer borough plumber, just normal, you know, bro. And that just, I had to keep doing that voice because they would always refer to him and ask him for help and bring him along, and I was like, he is a space plumber. Like, he, you know, it was one of these things where you kind of can't convince your players that, like, this was a silly one-liner I threw in. Like, it's funny what people latch on to things unexpectedly, which is, again, a little different than a controlled environment like a video game, where if it's just a one-liner in a classic, like, Final Fantasy RPG, that little toadstool man's always going to say the same one-liner. He's never going to come with you and have adventures, you know. So, I like that,
I'm going to
unexpectedness.
stop stealing. Oh, yeah, I know, and I think it keeps... And it's just interesting for me because I've only played Traveler, and so to hear that this goes on in other games is sort of reassuring that maybe I'm not so crazy when I'm playing Traveler, so it gives me hope for my ability. So, Paige, I'll let you sneak in now. Sorry, I could talk about this all day. So.
No, it's great. Do you have any other questions for him, or?
No, I just want to talk to him about school and stuff now, but that's another time. Hey, I went through the whole master's writing thing, so I'm like, oh, you write too? And you write about geeky stuff? Ooh! Nerding out.
Well, ladies, I found a game that I want us to try. And now that we know that we can use Skype, I want to try Monster Hearts with us girls. You'll have to look it up online. I've got a lot of feedback on this from females that have been playing this game. And it's an RPG, so I think this would be right up our alley as far as our personalities are concerned. This could go either horribly wrong or be totally awesome, and we're all about the 50-50 win at the round table. I will definitely send you all emails if you haven't found it to the link to where the game is. Sorry, Paige, didn't mean to cut you off.
No problems. I see the link. All right, so I think we covered Dungeons and Dragons. We know that we have a Dungeons and Dragons lifelong dungeon master amongst us. Was there anything else that influenced you as a kid? Any other games, video games, any other kinds of board games, or anything like that, or computer games? Anything like that?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I definitely loved, like, when I played Metroid, or really when I would often just die horribly at Metroid, my little brother is much better, would then pick up the game and, like, beat it, and I just watch him, like, wow, I wish I, could beat that lava dude. Like, that stuck with me. Those images from that era of game, Castlevania 2, I mean, all those creatures, the way they were rendered. What I loved about it was they're so blobby, and they're so crappy, but they leave it a lot to your mind. Same with the Final Fantasy games, frankly. They were so fun to play. Secret of Mana and the sequels, the second Densetsu games. Like, you have to put a lot in because the graphics kind of are terrible. And I actually think that is more D&D-like in a way than World of Warcraft, which is very much based on D&D, or Diablo, whatever number we're up to in Diablo. The last one I played is Diablo 2. I guess I'm going to guess we're like Diablo 9 or something, but...
no, it's just 3.
Those games,
Blizzard's,
3? Okay, well, cool.
Blizzard's slow.
That's D&D, right? But it's like it's trying so hard to make D&D look real that I kind of lose interest. Like, I'd rather imagine it myself if I'm gonna play as another character, as opposed to. I mean, I don't know. It's just very different pleasure, I guess. If that makes any sense.
Oh yeah.
There was one other big game that wasn't D&D that a lot of people might have played. I don't know if your viewers have played, but Call of Cthulhu is the classic horror D&D game, and that game's really fun and really different just because it's very similar mechanically today that Wizards like bought the original version at some point. But the big difference is you play as a normal person. So like you're not a knight who's trained in the art of the axe. You're just like Gary from Queens. And when a monster, an 800-foot-tall octopus from space, is somewhere off Easter Island and you're like out there looking for him, what are you going to do to him? You're Gary from Queens. Like, I got my brother's handgun, I got a sock with some nickels. Like, what are you going to do? He's 800 feet tall. So you just pretty much die over and over again. It's a great game. It's made to just, terrify your friends and kill them and make them re-roll characters often. And so that was a lot of fun to play. Again, I think thanks to my older brother. I think he showed me that. We never played it, but my friends loved that. We ended up playing through the 1920s all the way into World War II, and then got this kind of a wacky, like, Inglourious Bastards campaign where, they're trying to fight Nazis, but there's a lot of werewolves involved, and everybody dies.
Of course.
As one does.
No, I just, over the holiday season, I took a seasonal job at this store called Marbles, the Brain Store. And they're a chain, but they're a small chain. Like, they started, like, maybe 5 years ago. There's, like, 20 stores. But they sell board games and puzzles and stuff, all designed to enhance your brain in some way, to work your critical thinking or word skills or memory or whatever. But long story short, everybody I worked with was a huge, like, board game fan. Like, they loved board games. And I heard so much about how much they loved Call of Cthulhu. Like, they just couldn't get enough of it. So, it's interesting you bring that up. That's one that I would be interested in playing with a group of people.
That's one of the more fun games also. If you get the board game version, it's called Arkham Horror, and it's a big dark green box, and it's got so many game pieces. It actually takes like an hour to just set up all the pieces on the board, which I honestly think, having now played it many times, like it's a joke. Like, this had to be a joke. It's a fun game, but they had to just know that this was going to drive everyone slightly insane just putting all the little like things together.
Yeah.
It's worth checking out.
So, are there any games like on the horizon that you're looking forward to? Maybe that are coming up in the new year?
Yeah, definitely. The two big ones that I recommend everyone check out if you've played games like D&D and Vampire and Call of Cthulhu and just the classics are Numenera and The Strange, which are both by the same guy. And they're basically supposed to be a more fun mechanic that is very similar to D&D, but much simplified. And this, I've heard this from a lot of experienced gamers, that this game is just really, it's the real deal. It's like everything you liked about D&D, but simplified, so it's less kind of annoying numbers to keep track of. And the setting is really cool, and it's basically the setting that I have been running in the game I've been writing, so I've actually had to rethink what I would want to publish because of this game, which is the idea that you're so far in the future that many civilizations, many species on Earth have come and fallen and whatever, so everything you find in the ground is like magic-esque, but it's just some advanced technology that you don't understand, you couldn't replicate. So it's a really cool combination of like mystery, but there's still some of that power and like, let's go get the cool crap out there and let's fight the scary monsters that made D&D fun, you know, in the 70s. But it's got this sort of post-apocalyptic, like dark ecology vibe that I think is actually really important to like add into games now. This urgency, like we're not going to go back and live in medieval times and, you know, have the Shire. Like we're actually probably going to live in a horrible desert full of like algae monsters, and it's interesting to try to think that way as a group when you're like a little bit drunk, just for fun. So
I love a good dystopia, you know, like anything.
Yeah.
So, is there a understanding in the community when games are changed like this fundamentally? Is that going to make it unappealing for the hardcore players?
Yeah, D&D's had the most, I think, ups and downs, and to a lesser degree, because it's a slightly smaller fan base, Call of Cthulhu, but those games have really had eras when they were much more complicated, and they tried to add sort of new dynamics, new rule systems to maybe, I think in many ways, mimic video games. So the big change was the third version of Dungeons & Dragons to the fourth, which was the most recent until now the fifth one's coming out. So the fourth's been the most recent for a while. And that one was really trying to be like World of Warcraft, frankly. And it just sort of turned everyone off who'd played the game as a kid, because it felt like, why are you competing like with video games? They're much better at that type of sort of very focused on combat and very focused on like, I can use this power X number of times per time interval, like per day or per 10 minutes, and it has a recharge rate. You know, it just felt like, wow, you're really trying to sort of be like a video game, whereas classic D&D, the powers work slightly differently, and it felt a lot more integrated with your kind of character and your story. So it was more like, well, I'm a wizard, so I did this background work, so now I can do this thing. Or, you know, I'm a fighter, so I'm just better at fighting. Like, you didn't need to use a sort of power to just hit somebody with an axe. So that was probably the biggest moment when a lot of, I think, older people got turned off to the official products. But that was actually great, because it meant that a lot of them went and wrote their own games and just thought about it more deeply. Like, well, what makes these games fun? Is it rules? Is it combat? Or is it some other, you know, thing that's happening? And sorry, cut me off if I'm rambling.
No, go ahead. No, you're not rambling.
No,
we're
wordy.
absorbing
We like
everything that you're
I
saying,
am like,
and from the aspect of, like I said, trying to ease my way in and find out what's going to be the best fit for me. Heather's already got herself started, so she's kind of not as a novice anymore. I'm going to give her her props over there. Cherry, busted. Paige, we're going to have to go back to noobs. One up on us, right? Where's that one up, Brian? There we go. He's awake.
Whoop. Well,
we are going to
okay?
be taking some. Yeah, I'm good. Taking some questions from the chat room. If anybody's got questions in there, please start throwing them up, because we're going to be wrapping things up here soon. But we want to know what you guys want to ask our guest. I think I'm going to throw it over to Zia.
Are we covering news still?
Yep, we are covering our RPG
We are
news.
still doing that news. RPG news, right. So, RPG news. Firefly, the RPG, is coming out in the next few months. It looks as though it's going to be, returning to the verse with their involved Cortex Plus system. So it's going to be based off of Firefly. So they'll be pulling a lot of background from the verse, which is exciting, because I love Firefly very much. So I'd be curious to see how that will turn out. So yeah, that's news I got on my end.
I think I might play that myself.
I love
I
Fire
want
Library.
I could relate to.
Oh.
Paige is going to talk to us about some Kickstarter projects because we want to give some Kickstarter projects love each show that we kind of find interesting, or maybe we think you would find interesting. Go for it, Paige.
I am a big fan of Kickstarter, and I'm just going to show you guys. Like, I like the idea of being able to fund ideas for people that otherwise might not see the light of day. Like, I'm holding the Oculus Rift dev kit. We funded it like 2.5 years ago. Like, when it first hit Kickstarter, we're like, yes, I need that. So I think that it's really, really great that it exists. And that's all I'm going to say about that right now. To parlay that into what we're talking about today, it's been a launching ground for a lot of new RPGs in the past year. We've seen the Robotech RPG Tactics that appeals to miniature war gamers and anime fans who are trying to dabble into the RPG side of things. There's Exalted, which is a Mythic martial arts-based game. There's all kinds of different things that we're going to be seeing coming out on Kickstarter soon. And if I'm missing anything, please feel free to jump in the chat, guys, if we haven't mentioned anything that you guys are aware of. Because we would love to show some of these projects some love. Because, again, like, I can't stress how much I love the ideas of crowdfunding. Because you can help. I mean, like, think about it. You're helping people achieve their dreams. Like, we're going to start developing. We just recently got accepted into the Nintendo Wii U dev program. So we have a software developer kit for Wii U games, and we're going to start programming Wii U games, my fiance and I. So, like, the idea that we can go and, like, get people to donate, like, $20 at a time to maybe achieve some greater things that we might not be able to do in-house is awesome. So...
And that being said, you guys, with the media company that we created, and I say we, that means the team that we have built behind Ladies of the Round Table and the ladies ourselves, we made a Roundtable Media. You guys have seen it on Twitter. You've seen us toting it out there. We made that with the community in mind to help you guys reach those goals and those dreams that you might have of being a game developer, running your own website, having your own business, all those things. We want to work with you and be creative with you to help you achieve what you want to do. Because we love our community. Without you guys, we're nothing. We're just some couple of hags, speaking for myself, not you, Heather, not you, Paige, hanging out with crazy hats on. I mean, really, we wouldn't be able to do this without you guys. And we appreciate that you're here and you're taking the time to watch our show. So with all that being said, Heather, did you see any questions in the chat?
Yes, it looked like we did have one from Fakbupog. I'll say your name properly on this show. Fakbupog was curious if you have a favorite historical timeline.
Ooh,
And he likes Napoleonic.
That's me.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many to choose from. Really, any time when empires were falling is always good. There are a lot of games based on like the Three Kingdoms period in China and the Roman, late Roman times, all the way to like Traveller, like imagined futures. I really like thinking about what's going to happen next, and I'm not so interested in immediate apocalypse, but what might happen like literally a million years from now. So I generally tend to set games on Earth, but in a time where like we can't really prove that what I'm saying won't happen. So I like to think that we're actually being predictive. And all of the things will come to pass, and there will be that monkey with the laser wrench one day. But yeah, for historical timelines, the Civil War and World War II are just always good times. I mean, Tarantino obviously has mined these to good effect. Like, there's pretty clear bad guys, so it's pretty easy to set a game in that setting and feel like there's going to be a lot of extra tension, and then you have to throw in a kind of perpendicular tension to that. So they're not even worried about the real bad guys because that's what the army's doing. They're trying to do some other secret thing, and they keep, running into the Confederates or the Nazis or whatever. So, and there's just a ton. You can go on Wikipedia, and there's your story. I mean, go Google 10 weirdest things that happened during World War II, and that's 10 great campaigns. Castle Itter, actually. There was French film stars and tennis stars fought alongside with some German tank guys who quit the Nazi party and wanted to kill Hitler with the French resistance against the Nazis. So there's this weird like group of non-soldiers and like rebel soldiers at a castle. It's good. It's worth Googling.
Well, I would have to say that there was probably some really good movie scripts out there from some of these games. You know, I mean, stuff that with the sci-fi and the green screen and all the stuff that we have, boy, oh boy, somebody out there has been a DM or a GM and has a great script to write. Don't be scared. Write it, people. I'd go pay to watch it.
I do have to sneak in a personal question. What is your favorite like video game RPG? Do you have just like one that you go to that always makes you feel very happy and shiny when you play it?
RPG video. I mean, I really like classics. Like I grew up playing. The Final Fantasy games are just. They feel like D&D, like I said, in a weird way.
I love Final Fantasy.
I don't know. I don't replay. Like, it's weird. I don't play a lot of those old games now. When I think about the last games I played, I probably played Secret of Mana. There's actually a game you guys. I don't know if it's even popular. But it was called Rygar. It was kind of like you're a barbarian with a shield, and you kind of run around this wasteland. That game was awesome and really hard, and I loved playing. Like I played that all the time. There's a giant snail at some point. It was one of these things. It's like a David Lynch movie. You kind of remember it at 4 a.m. and you kind of freak out. That's worth looking up again.
Yes. I think I was recently playing that not too long ago. Somebody on Twitter had mentioned it, and I was like, yeah! That and
Gotta get back
Tales
to
of
it, huh?
Fantasia. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And Golden Axe. That's another one.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, we're going to have to do a throwback show. I tell you, Paige will be in her element.
I just want
my
a show where I just
God.
ask Wythe questions all day. Like I just want to ask you questions. I'm like keeping myself.
You got another
all
one?
dead here.
You got another one? Go ahead. Go ahead. I'll give you one more.
So your favorite novel?
Oh, that's a really hard question to answer because I teach about literature largely and modern American literature and sci-fi. I really, really like this Japanese guy named Abe Kobo, and he wrote a book called Woman in the Dunes that's very pretty and weird and surreal. But maybe more appropriate for this conversation, he wrote a book called Inter Ice Age 4 that's about... it's crazy. It's really worth reading. It's about a supercomputer, like an AI kind of computer that this guy makes that basically says, hey, the world's going to end, and we need to make sure all our babies can breathe water because the sea level's going to rise. And he wrote this in like 1970-ish, so around when D&D was coming out. And it's so weird because it's just very dark. The guy goes and visits, and the Japanese government's already consulted the computer and is already making these aquatic humans called the Kwan, who are these savage underwater babies, and they get little underwater dogs and pigs to raise. And the guy just like sees how his creation goes so out of hand, but it's all like kind of a story because the AI is kind of telling him what's going to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. So it has this element of like, it's almost like reading kind of a weird D&D game gone wrong or something. So I would recommend that if you know.
Interesting. It's like
I'm thinking
it's a page
I like the
turner.
same things. Like you like the same things that I like, so I'm like, oh, what do you read? I'm like,
Yeah, there you go. It links up in the chat for you, Heather.
Yeah. Well, email me. I'm happy to talk. I talk on Twitter about literature for fun. Like that's my favorite thing. So.
Oh, you'll be
Anytime
getting a
I
lot of
can-
tweets from Heather.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
anytime I could write in grad school about video games, like anytime I could connect anything that we were reading to something in gaming, like I was on it. Like, oh, I love writing about it academically
Yeah.
because there's a lot there that's not being tapped. So anytime anyone's doing it, it makes me happy.
Absolutely.
Hey,
Absolutely.
that's where you need to put your stuff in the blog, Heather. Bring it, girlfriend. We know you got the chops. Our
Alright, I'm
fans
done.
want
I'm
to hear
gonna
what
hold
you have to
myself
say.
I'm gonna hold myself.
All right,
in now.
guys. So, are we good with the questions? Anybody else got a last-minute question to throw up there in the chat because we are winding things up on the roundtable.
Had anything else snuck in there that I could tell? So
All right, so we're gonna start our shout-outs, people. It's about that time. Shout-outs. I wish I had an echo machine because that'd be awesome.
Weren't you trying to get
shout-outs.
rid of your echo?
You know what? It's only on my end, so it doesn't work for you guys. It's in my head. Oh, all right. So I'm going to go first. I'm going to give shout outs to all of the companies this week and coming up in the next 2 weeks that are competing in our Snack Wars project that's over on the blogs. Basically what this is I've challenged some of those subscription snack companies to send us what their product is so we can give them an honest, no holds barred review. If it's gross and it's nasty and it's overly priced, we're going to tell you. Anything that we review on the roundtable, we're not going to give props for sending us their crap. We want them to send us their crap so we can tell you what it's really like. Don't waste your money, or yeah, you got to get some of this because it's great. So we're always going to give you the honest review. We have our friends at NatureBox giving us a 50% off code. If you go over to the website and read my review on the NatureBox, first box I got yesterday, down at the bottom there, you'll see a 50% off code. I have to say, NatureBox, in my opinion, from my first perspective with Graze.com, which is a similar type product, NatureBox beat out Graze on the taste and the quality of the product and the product size. But you can read all that over at the blog. Paige, shout outs.
Well, I wanted to give a shout out to some of the other projects that I work on, which is Barroom Gamer, who just came into the chat, which I was
Barroom
totally going to
Gamer
mention them.
sponsor.
Yeah.
They're part of our partnership now.
That's right. And I also write for them, which I'm going to be writing for them a little more often now that, well, as soon as I move and all that good stuff happens. But I want to say hello to Blank Showcast, which is a podcast that I'm also involved in. And I wanted to give a shout out to Original PSP, who has been nominated for a Shorty Award. If you guys aren't familiar with, if you guys aren't familiar with the Shorty Awards, they are Twitter awards. They're social media awards. And as you all know, Scott does fantastic things for the gaming industry, and he has been able to have our viewpoints heard on platforms that aren't accessible to all of us. So if you guys are in support of that, go over to his site at he's at Original PSP on Twitter, or you can go to his website at patrickscottpatterson.com and maybe give him a vote for a Shorty Award in the gaming category.
Hey, speaking of which, you still haven't booked him on our show. That's your number one priority,
I know.
girlfriend.
He is a busy man, believe me.
Hey Ryan, where's the applause for the Shorty nomination?
Yeah.
There we go, people. Yay. Congratulations.
Yeah, so hopefully we can see his efforts in the gaming industry recognized. I mean,
Yes.
It's not like an Oscar or something, but it's a Shorty Award, and that's important.
Hey, we want to go out and show him how much
world.
we appreciate his hard work, guys. Hit him up on that
Yeah.
Twitter.
Yeah, and I have to say, I was fortunate enough to be interviewed by him for a feature on his page a couple months ago, and he is, like, fantastically hilarious to speak to. He was just a great
And I have to say,
person.
all those interviews that he did on his page were fantastic because that's how I found our page. I went over there and I was reading and I'm like, she sounds like somebody I would love to talk to. How you doing?
Hey.
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 Oh, and then we have what? T-shirt wars coming up, Paige?
Yes. Yes, we do. We're going to be starting T-shirt wars in a couple of weeks. So basically, if anybody follows me on Twitter or Facebook or in real life, which I advise against, one of the things I like to do is collect and wear T-shirts that display some of my interests. They're mostly Star Wars and game related. I'm wearing sweaters today because I'm freezing, but we want to get different companies in on the action. So if you want to see your T-shirts on our show, go to our website at ladiesoftheroundtable.net, and we'll be given cool shirts to wear, and we're going to tweet to see who wants to vote on the shirts for Twitter giveaways, and it's going to be lots of fun. So send us T-shirts. I need T-shirts. There's a whole spot on my website, which is paigebelmont.com, about my T-shirts.
She has a problem, people. There is a program that we're submitting for her to go to.
Yeah,
I don't think it's
called
going to help.
TA, but it stands for
T-Shirts
T-shirts
Anonymous.
Anonymous, but it gets mistaken for other things that start with T and A. So
Not
it's
this show,
drawn up.
people. Not this show.
Not
You're not
this
going to
show.
see them. It's not going to happen. Oh, and I think it's about time for that wonderful part of the show where we do what, ladies? What do we do?
Give crap away! Woo!
Give crap away!
Not crap. It's not crap. I shouldn't call it.
That's right. Hit it again, Ryan. All right, people, get ready for the rules.
So yeah, we have 4 codes for the for Rooted Games Torchlight to give away to fans in the chat room. You need to be sure to subscribe to us on the Twitch. There's a lovely little subscribe button. If you could mash that button, that would be fantastic, so you can be eligible. If you want a copy, put #ladies in the chat room now, and we will be randomly selecting those who want a copy.
#ladies, people, for the giveaway. Hit it. Come on, we didn't see it rolling through the chat. It's free.
Yeah.
It's free.
Is this for
Hashtag
Torchlight or
ladies.
Torchlight 2?
It is just the first one.
Wow. Maybe everybody already has it. That would be interesting.
Yeah, that's true. You might already have it. But if you have it, you could also give it away on your Twitter. Imagine that.
That's true. That's true.
Nobody says
Totally
you have
worth
to
the
keep
TNA,
yourself.
says Mr. Fallen Angel. Timmy has
Totally
snuck in the
worth it.
room, girls. Timmy.
This is the first time I've ever tried to give away something. There we go.
There we go. #ladies.
The contest is really easy. If you want it, we will give it to you.
Thank you, Broom, for your honesty.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So Ray of Light and Barroom Gamer. Barroom Gamer, I think, should count.
Yes, they count. They can count.
Gamer counts.
Anybody
So-
else?
Oh yeah, there is a little bit of a delay for them.
Almost
Okay,
everybody
then.
already owns it. All right. Let's roll.
Well, we got. I think
That's it. There's just 2.
that's.
So
it.
let's give them both. The other copies we will give away on our Twitter.
There you go. That'll work. Because not everybody can be at the live show, right? So. I think
That's
it's the first time I've
right.
ever tried to give something away and people be quiet in the chat room.
You know what? Speaking of which, we will give the other ones away on our YouTube because we can do that.
Yeah,
We'll just
that's true.
we'll just have people put in the random comments and we will give them away. Yeah, 30-second delay in the chat. You are correct.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so our winner, you guys know who you are. You're only 2 people that hashtag, so good job. Good job. Love that participation. We want to thank our guests, Wythe, for coming in and visiting with us and talking the talk and walking the walk over there. Mr. Full of Knowledge and gave me a full-on education, which I appreciate, for free. Yay, didn't have to pay the prices. That's right. Put them up, put them up. All right, people, thank you for joining us. Be sure to look out for midway through the week to see what's going to be going on Ladies of the Round Table on next Friday. I'm going to tell you it's going to be something special. I'm going to be out of
Interesting.
town. Yet, you will still see me on the show. Can you guess what I'm going to be?
People.
Magic. It's going to be
I
magic.
know.
Taking an airplane. Stuff's going to happen. Tune in. Winning. #. All right, guys. Thanks. Have a good night.
Geeks
Ladies.
are simple.
Thank you.
Love you.
chat room.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. Bye, guys.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
bye,
go
guys.
follow you. Promptly follow you
Oh,
and
thank
bother
you.
you.
Yeah, gang, if you're not
Appreciate it.
following Rice, you need to go follow him.
I need to follow all you guys and get involved and see what you guys do game-wise, because that sounds really interesting. If you put together, a weekly or whatever, like, Skype game, that'd be...
Yeah,
I
we
don't know.
definitely are going to have to try the Skyping thing because we're all very interested, and I think I want to try the Monster Hearts. I think that'll be... If you guys go read that, you're going to crack up. I think that's going to be great.
Yeah.
Thanks to everybody in the chat room.
Thank you, chat room.
Thanks, everyone.
Great show, guys.
Golden credits. Okay.